All right. We are pleased now, and we have our group here, all of our panelists, and we are pleased now that we're going to talk about something that I didn't even know. Well, let me say this: I just had some erroneous information about some people who have served, and they have some problems that I didn't know about. With us on our live line, we are pleased to have Susana Sandoval. She is the United Nations Human Rights Commissioner, and we are pleased to have her on to discuss the National Deported Veterans Rights Tour. Ms. Sandoval, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Cliff.
How
Good
you,
to hear your voice.
how you doing?
Doing really well.
Good, good, good. Long time. You're a native Chicagoan, so she's. We're just pleased to have her with us. And she's run for office. She's done all kinds of things. But tell us about the situation now with and you've been with one of the Vietnam War veterans who served in the United States Marines. Tell us about that.
Sure, he's here, and I'm going to let him speak with you as well. But
Oh,
just
great.
very
Okay.
briefly,
Uh-huh.
we're right. We just left Salt Lake City, Utah. We're headed to Cheyenne, Wyoming. We're visiting state capitals with an RV that's wrapped with the message of stopping the deportation of our military veterans. This has been going on for quite some time now. Under the former administration, there were different strategies that were happening in order to prevent the deportations of any individuals, but in particular for military veterans. And in April, after a long struggle of trying to get some traction on this issue, we were able to get one of the deported veterans returned back, and that was thanks to Governor Edmund Brown in California, who actually pardoned him. The challenge is that I'm traveling with one of the Valenzuela brothers. There are two brothers who have been sharing their experience, and when they shared their experience back in 2009, a lot of other veterans that had been deported reached out to them and started, talking, organizing amongst themselves about their situation. Because when these two vets started sharing their experience, they were able to find out where the other veterans were living, and they were coming out of the shadows in order to help each other. And so in Tijuana, there's a Deported Veterans House. Actually, there's several organizations now, including the U.S. Unified Deported Veterans Organization, that's doing a fair amount of work across the border, on both sides of the border, in order to ensure that, one, legislators know that this is a real situation, and two, that we need to do something, and there's an urgency to do it. So Valenzuela is here with me as well, so I thought maybe there might be a question you may have for him.
Oh, absolutely. We'll talk to him in just a moment. I just want to ask you, Susana, in my ignorance or erroneous presumption, I felt that if you served in the military, you automatically a citizen. I mean, even if you weren't, that would make you a citizen.
But at least a green card or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not a citizenship.
Right.
Yeah, maybe not a citizen, but
but
you're not going to be deported.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't give you any military service. I wish we could say that the United States has a track record of respecting our veterans, and we know that there's a lot of issues with the Veterans Administration in regards to access to medical benefits, and the quality of the benefits as well. But the reality is that a lot of these veterans, a majority of them are from the Vietnam War era, but a majority of them we're finding, we just left one in California that is in a detention facility, even though he served in Iraq, Kosovo, in Afghanistan, several tours of duty. Unfortunately, we're trained to do specific things to protect our freedoms, and yet still find themselves in the conundrum of not having, a full citizenship.
Let me ask you something, Susana. My name's Ernesto Borges. I'm a Vietnam vet. But you said that Governor Jerry Brown pardoned this vet. Was that the only way to get him back in the country? I mean, it took a pardon.
Well,
that's
I'm sure
outrageous
that
that you got.
Valenzuela has some choice words for you. There's one way for sure that you're going to come back if you're a deported. You're a deported vet. One way for sure for you to be returned to this country is if you die. Then you're able to come back.
If you die
as a deported veteran, correct.
Wow. And be buried in a military funeral cemetery.
Correct, exactly.
Now, why hasn't this been? Listen, Susana, you're very up on politics. In fact, you've even run for the Senate and so forth, the U.S. Senate.
I ran for the Senate before.
I know you did. I know you did. That's what I'm saying. I know you know politics. Why isn't there someone with all of these veterans we have in Congress? This would have been fairly easy to change. This wouldn't be a difficult thing to. I don't see. It might be something that Democrats and Republicans could agree on, notwithstanding our great
divide.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
You know what I mean? I mean, who's going to be against that? So why hasn't that been done? Tell me. You would know.
This is I'll talk a little bit about the last election cycle, only in being pointed about our current leadership at all levels, regardless of party. There are unfortunately economic interests that control the economic agenda that our government helps underwrite. And I will say that very particular.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last election cycle, we had 3 senators that were running for president. Rubio and Cruz were too conservative and very vocal and being anti-immigrant, even though they were from 2 states where there's a lot of immigrant population.
Right.
And Senator Sanders, I can tell you that I personally went with a delegation of veterans, including Valenzuela, some from Illinois, and some from California, to talk to Senator Sanders and his staff in particular to implore, to beg that, and I'll say I begged, as a civilian, I'm ashamed that we have asked people to serve for us, and now we are deporting them regardless of what their situation is. And so when I found out about this back in before 2009, there were a couple of cases I had heard of when I was serving on the National Head Start Association board, and we dealt with a lot of mixed status families. And so I didn't hear that, in some situations. But when I met the Valenzuela brothers in D.C., I was appalled. In particular because their mother is born in New Mexico, and so
in New Mexico.
Yes, in New Mexico, which is part of the U.S.
Yeah,
so,
right. Obviously.
Why wouldn't they be citizens?
Well, they were evidently born.
She was born
She
here.
was born here, but
where
were
they born? Yeah.
Yeah, so they were born in Mexico.
That's what I thought.
But regardless,
but still, I mean, if you have an American citizen and State Department or whatever, and they're born in another country, I mean, John McCain was not born in this country, nor was Ted Cruz.
Correct. And the question we need to ask ourselves right now, especially in the political climate that we're in, is what kind of leadership are we looking towards? 2, in the situation of our military spending budget, are we willing to continue to spend money to send people abroad to fight for us and to defend our freedoms when we can't even guarantee that they'll have access to adequate health care, both for their physical needs and their mental needs?
Well, just quickly, Susana, Ernesto brought up an excellent point. Since the parent was a citizen, why wouldn't the child
be bestowed upon the child?
Absolutely.
Well, again, it's a matter of paperwork, right? They literally. I mean, and I would rather have Valenzuela answer that himself,
Let's talk.
because I mean, it's an emotional argument for him to do.
I need to ask her a question before she goes away, though. As a veteran, we all go in through a recruiter. So is that the same process in Mexico where the person went in at? Is that a contract, a different contract than what we do when we go into the service from the U.S.? In terms of, they basically tell you, the recruiter tells you about your benefits and everything like that. Is that a different contract that they have?
No. And so just for a point of clarification, and then I would like to have Valenzuela answer this directly, since he took that oath on our behalf.
Sure.
So the question is that these gentlemen have served under the same contract. When they raise their hand and they take that oath, it's the same promise that you took. It doesn't matter. And we as a country have been practicing utilizing folks who are not citizens for years, for decades. In fact, when the U.S.-Mexican War happened, we had Mexicans fighting on both sides. Regardless of status. I mean, that's way back in 1848.
Yeah, because Cliff, one of the things is,
Doctor.
When I was serving in Iraq, I was with the 111th Aviation, and these were dedicated people from Puerto Rico who were serving, and the way that we treated Puerto Rico, I think there's a racial overtone here too. And the way that we treated those people who were in Puerto Rico, it burns my heart every day when I think about what they're still going through. And if these people who are in the service, I'm not sure, and maybe Susana can answer this, and Manuel, but what happens when someone served and they got injured? Because I've been hearing them deporting some of the people who have a Mexican ancestry, who served valiantly, but who are found with marijuana in their car. And this is part of the syndrome that veterans go through when they come back from war, PTSD. And it seems like we have a blind eye to what people have gone through. So are they deporting people who have been classified as having injuries as well, who need treatment?
Wow, that's a good question.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Do you know, you have an answer for that, Susana?
Whether they have
Susana,
service-related injuries?
Yeah.
She's
Did
not
we
around.
lose her? Oh, yeah, there she is. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So here I am. The question in regards to how does this happen, how do they fall, out of status, and how is it possible? I mean, we just left a gentleman in Atlanta, California, who's detained. He's been in the detention facility for 9 months without medication. He has 70% disability. He has hearing loss. He had a TBI, traumatic brain injury, from the several tours of duty, that he has served. And his mother, on top of that, was a political refugee from El Salvador. And we have, and Valenzuela and I and a group of other activists from Veterans for Peace, and a recently returned deported veteran as well, the second one that is returned, Fabian Rebolledo. We were sitting in a hearing, incredulously listening to the prosecutor on behalf of INS, immigration, asking this man, how is he sure that if he was deported back to El Salvador that his life would be in jeopardy? He served in the military.
Wow.
He served in the military.
Right.
He served under a military contract. He gave service to the United States. We have been sometimes at some period of history, we have not always, there have been forces, where we've, been in different sides of a particular war. So the veterans that are in Tijuana have all complained that they've had people approach them because they served in the military and tried to recruit them to mercenaries.
Sure, absolutely, because they know
cartels,
about that training.
yeah.
Quick question, does it matter whether they got an honorable discharge or something less than an honorable
No,
discharge?
a lot
It
of
doesn't
people
matter at
were
all.
honorably
It's still-
discharged.
Listen,
There are a lot
Susana,
of- I would say-
Susana, what I'm going to ask of you is please, because we've got a number of callers that I know you can answer,
Sure.
and I'm not sure that Mr. Valenzuela would be able to. Please give us the apology to him, but these questions are things that you would be able to answer to a greater degree than he could. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right, let's take some calls. This is unbelievable. Yeah, I was totally wrong on this.
Very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to Kurt. Kurt, you're on WVON.
Hi.
Good.
I know time is short. As
Yeah.
I understand it, there was a veteran deported here from Chicago, and the reason how he fell into the system was he had a drug conviction, and that was what they used was that regardless of military service, he was not a U.S. citizen who had a felony conviction, and that was why he was deported. I think that's how it's going. I think they're winding up in the criminal justice system, and because it doesn't seem like they're just going out year.
What?
How else would they know?
What was his nationality? Do you know, Kurt?
Mexican.
I believe he was deported to Mexico.
Mexican.
So he
Oh,
was
Yeah,
Hispanic.
that's Perez. That's Miguel Perez.
Oh, Susana, you know all about that then. Yeah, okay.
He had family and everything here, and
Yeah.
I think they're still trying to do what they can to bring him back. I don't know if he's in a relocation center or actually been deported yet. And
He
by
was
the way,
deported.
John McCain was born in a
Canal
U.S.
Zone.
Naval
I know.
hospital,
Yeah.
which is American soil
I know,
in Panama.
but Ted Cruz was not. Ted Cruz was born in
Cruz's
Canada.
mother is American.
I understand. That was my point.
Right,
is
and
that
that's why
his mother was born
right,
in the United States. Why wouldn't that be bestowed upon
Good
him?
point, Kurt. Thank you so much.
Okay, anchors away.
Okay.
Must be a Navy guy.
Appreciate it.
Must be
Let's
the
let's
Navy.
go next caller, Earl. Earl, you're on WVON, America's Heroes Group. Go right ahead.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure, Earl.
I will follow up on that because, that last questioner is tying right into what I was going to ask. I was asking whether there are any Caucasians being deported, like from Poland or Warsaw or Regis, picking out the ethnic groups that are coming from South America or Haiti. Because with this administration, it seems like they're trying to remove as many possible Democrats from voting as possible and trying to remove as many immigrants that are not white as possible. So those were that's why.
But you still have to be a citizen to vote, though.
Yeah.
Kind of hang up and listen to you guys.
Okay. Thank you for your call.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your call. Susanna, can you help us with that?
Sure.
Do we know of any Europeans, for instance, who?
Yes, we do know of several that have been. It's not just Mexico. I mean, I would say a preponderance of them are Mexican or of ethnic background, like the caller just mentioned.
Sure.
The question that the female host, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name, but
Earl.
she mentioned. Yes, she mentioned the fact, that people are, there seems to be like ethnic profiling or racial profiling. And I would say that there's an institutionalized racism that is been coming out. We saw it happen under the last administration because we had our first black president. We are seeing a preponderance as we're traveling around the country. We're seeing that people are just appalled that, one, this is even happening. Most people, I would probably say that most people, when they consider someone who served in the military and they just think it's crazy that someone who made that level of sacrifice would actually, be deported. And so, I want to touch on something because this is.
Sure.
I was having a conversation with a CNN reporter, and I think it's really important. The language that we use when we talk about these situations in the media is very important. It is racial profiling. It is institutionalized racism. But there is an issue about, even using the word criminal justice system, is almost ironic because when somebody comes out and has PTSD issues, and I am not a veteran, I am a civilian. When you have been in a traumatic experience, you have issues that happen and social problems happen. And so a majority of these veterans have not received adequate access to health care, both physical or mental. So we're throwing them across the border. A lot of them are in Mexico. We have a deported veterans house over there that was founded by deported veterans. We're helped by activists, both from the faith community as well as other activists crossing the border, bringing supplies, bringing food. Just, an embarrassment to our country that, I have to go to, I and other people have to go and talk to the Mexican government to advocate on behalf of not only these veterans, but imagine the effects of their PTSD on their families. Imagine the effects of PTSD on their children, the lack of being, with both parents and having their families separated. I mean, just think about, one of the questions that we asked in the Obama administration is, if you have children, imagine what it would be like to be separated from your children. Imagine what it would be like to have your spouse with you one day, and within hours, that person is in another country that they're not familiar with.
Ms. Sandoval, there was an article that came out in the Times that said that there were actual not veterans, but actual service members who were foreign, who were not U.S. citizens, that were actually quietly being discharged and deported. Have you have any numbers on that, or have you been able to see any of that?
We don't have any numbers on that. That was the same question that CNN asked me. We've been asking within the deported veteran community to help us find folks in that. We know that there have been several, but to find somebody who fits in that category, you can imagine every case is
different. But real quickly though, the people that are being deported, is it because they got some disciplinary, some criminal conduct on their part? Is
like
that
like the drug
yeah,
conviction?
I'm saying, are they deporting veterans who have no criminal background, or are they all people who have subsequently been convicted of some crime?
Okay, so let's go back to the language, the use of language again. So the issue here is that we send people to war to protect our
I understand
freedom,
that. I'm
right?
just asking what's happening. Is it? Are they sending non-criminal people back to Mexico, or
no human being is a criminal.
I'm saying people have been convicted. People have been convicted.
Did they find anything in their history?
Okay, and what about any military or veteran women who may have had children here in the U.S.? Are they being deported as well?
We have several of that fit in that category. Yes, we also have current service members that are serving in the military active duty, whose children or family member or their spouse has been deported. We have that too.
One thing, have you seen an increased activity with the current legislative landscape with the Republicans in? What I might also say is that most of them have never even served or even thought about serving. There are more bone spurs in that group than anything else. But
so as I stated
something's
before,
afoot.
as I stated before, so I'm a native Chicagoan, so I'll use that as a disclaimer before I make the following statement.
Yep.
I am one of the women that fasted in front of the White House for 18 days because President Obama, so there was a woman that runs NCLR, she's the president of NCLR, National Council of La Raza, who called him the deporter in chief. Under the Obama administration, we deported over 2 million people, okay? We had a lot of people being deported. What I will say...
Susana, it's Glenda. Thank you so much. Let us do a follow-up show regarding this because we're wrapping up now. We only have 2 minutes left.
Susana, thank you so much.
And apologies to Manuel.
Yeah, absolutely. But we needed to keep you on. Just let him know,
And
okay?
thank him for his service for us.
and thank you for your work on DACA too.
Yeah. All right. No, you've given us some great information.
I would definitely follow
We'll
up
be
with you after
talking
the show.
back to you, Susanna, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much.
All
Thank
right.
you for your service.